everyone, I'm Darren with VibeTheNook.com, and today I'm going to take a look at Final Fantasy Legend. The original Game Boy had two Final Fantasy spin-off series released throughout its lifetime. There was Final Fantasy Legend and Final Fantasy Adventure. And the funny thing is that in Japan, neither of those games were actually a part of the Final Fantasy franchise. That connection was made purely for the North American market, just to help drive sales. In Japan, the Final Fantasy Adventure series was called Suiken Densetsu, and we would later start getting them out here as the Mana series. And Final Fantasy Legend was actually the beginning of the Saga series. The world of Final Fantasy Legend appears to be a flat earth with several layers and a tower in the middle connecting them. Legend has it that Paradise is at the very top of this tower. You play as an adventurer who desires to ascend this tower and reach Paradise. Even though this basic setup is consistent throughout the game, the story is actually broken up into several smaller arcs. As you ascend the tower, you'll occasionally come to a door that is sealed by magic, and to break the seal, you'll need to find a sphere that can be found somewhere in the world. To find the spheres, you'll usually need to help someone that you meet along the way. For example, on the base floor, there is a statue that is missing a sword, shield, and armor. By exploring the world map, you'll eventually find the missing parts of the statue, and when you return them, you'll be rewarded with the first sphere. Every few floors there will be a new world map to explore and a new story arc to complete. This sort of structure where several smaller story arcs all feed into a larger plot is very common in JRPGs and anime. With the world that is created here, this structure works really well. None of the story arcs are especially great, but they all work. The original Game Boy was really never any kind of a powerhouse, so the presentation here is incredibly limited, but the game makes good use of what little is there. The best graphics are easily the monster sprites during battle. They all look fantastic with some really great designs. And the music is another highlight of this game. A lot of chiptune artists like to use the Game Boy sound chip, and this soundtrack is a great example of what that chip can do. The gameplay takes a lot of inspiration from Final Fantasy II, which got rid of experience points and levels in favor of individual stats gradually increasing after battle. The main difference between that game and this one is that it works much better in Final Fantasy Legend. The main reason for that is that in Final Fantasy II, those stat increases were semi-randomized and you have no control over them. In Final Fantasy Legend, shops will carry items that you can use to increase your character's HP, strength, and agility, and this gives you a lot more control over those stat increases. At least, that's how it works for the human characters. Your party is comprised of 4 characters that you select at the beginning of the game, and instead of choosing their classes, you actually choose which race your characters are. You choose between humans, monsters, and mutants. Mutants actually level up in pretty much the same way as characters in Final Fantasy II. After battle, there's a small chance that one of the mutant stats will increase if certain conditions are met. For example, if they take damage, their HP might increase, or if they attack with a weapon, their strength may go up. Mutants can be difficult to use, but they also become very powerful very fast. They're also the only ones who can really use magic. They have 4 slots for spells that will automatically fill up on their own as you play the game. And occasionally, those spells will be randomly swapped out with new ones, and you have no control over this. You can equip them with specific spells that you choose, but that will take away from an equipment slot that can be used for armor or weapons. And we'll get back to the weapons later. Monsters are completely useless and a total waste of a party member. They don't really level up, but they can change their form. Every once in a while, an enemy will drop a piece of meat after it is defeated. If a monster eats this meat, it will change into a new form. Some monster forms are better than others, and most bosses will turn your monsters into something decently good. But as you progress through the game, you'll find that your monsters quickly start to feel like the weakest party members. They're also the only race where you have virtually no control over the way they progress and what abilities they're able to use. The biggest problem with this game is that it just really hasn't aged very well. There are a lot of places where this game's age really shows. For example, there is no sort of auto-target system while in combat. So if you have 2 characters attacking the same enemy and one kills it before the other can get their attack off, the second character will just do nothing. There is also an incredibly limited amount of inventory space. Key items stay in your inventory after you use them, so you'll have to manually discard them and just kinda hope that you won't need them again in the future. In addition to all of that, NPCs have a really bad habit of standing directly in the way of where you're trying to go. This is also a very grind-heavy game. You're usually grinding more for money to buy weapons than you are to increase your stats. Weapons can only be used a certain amount of times before they break. Battles are frequent, so your weapons will get a lot of use, which means that they will need to be replaced. Some weapons deal damage based on your character's strength stat, and some use the agility stat. The game doesn't really tell you which weapons use which, but that's the sort of thing that these days you can find with a simple Google search. Even for an old school turn-based JRPG, this game is very tedious. It really boils down to an absolutely ridiculous encounter rate. There are some places where you'll finish a battle, take one step, and another one will start right away. This is especially annoying during places with really good music because it's constantly being interrupted by this repetitive battle theme. Battles are fast-paced and relatively snappy, so at first they don't feel like too much of a chore. But then as the game goes on and your characters get to be more and more powerful, these random encounters start to feel more and more like an annoyance than anything else. Our final score for this game is going to be 6 out of 10. It's not necessarily a bad game, but oh, it is tedious. I could definitely see this being a decent road trip game back in the 90s, when you're stuck in the car and have literally nothing else to do for a whole 8 hours. But if you're stuck in a similar situation today, and you have your hands on the Nintendo Switch, it would be kind of hard to justify playing this game over something like Breath of the Wild or any of the good actual Final Fantasy games. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let us know by giving it a thumbs up and tell us about it in the comment section down below. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new here. That sort of thing helps the channel grow a lot. Make sure to check out vibethenook.com for more gaming related content as well as all of our social media pages. And I'll leave links to all of that in the description box. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you next time.